Well, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Conversations with Interesting People podcast, the show where we sit down with people from all walks of life and hear their story and their journey and hopefully inspire you in your own journey as well. I'm your host, Braden Collum, and today looks a little different. I'm sitting alone in my living room, and that is because all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, we have an incredible special guest today. He is a front of house engineer. He's a tour manager. He just recently launched his own online curriculum, and he's worked with incredible artists like Colony House, Mat Kearney, American authors, Switchfoot, Walk the Moon. I mean, just unbelievable artists. And I am incredibly humbled that he said yes to joining me today. Riley Vasquez, how are you, man?
Hey, how's it going, Braden? Thanks so much for having me today.
Man,
appreciate it.
Thank you. How's it going in Nashville?
Man, actually, if you see me run away at all during this podcast, I'm sorry, but we are currently under a tornado watch. So it is that time of year. It's spring. And I don't know if you know this, last year, March 3rd was a pretty big day in Nashville. It was not a good day, but a tornado ripped through our city, and we're still, putting things back together. So anytime there is a tornado watch, anytime there's a tornado warning now, a little over a year later, everybody's a little on edge because we realized after this last tornado that came through, it's not the first time it's happened the exact same way. So there's actually been 3 different tornadoes come through Nashville in the exact same path.
So
they all took almost an identical path. Luckily, I'm a little bit outside that path, but
still. They keep rebuilding in that path?
Well, they say that they built the city actually to help avoid that path, because that path has been, the first time it came through was early 1900s. Then it came through again in the late 50s, I believe. And then a tornado came through but didn't destroy much in the 90s. But then it came through pretty bad last year in 2020, March 2020. And so they say they built the city in a way that was like kind of around that path, but, it destroyed most of the cool stuff, the cool part of East Nashville, awesome. Which was, was a big bummer that it destroyed so much. But anyways, all that to say, I'm doing good, but we are under a tornado.
If you
watch.
duck out, you have to peace out.
If you hear a siren, I've got my headphones on. If you hear it before me, let me know.
That's awesome. Speaking of that, I've also got the construction people in my neighborhood decided this was the perfect time to redo our street. So if you hear my dog barking or if you hear jackhammers outside, which I can hear already.
Yeah, it's funny. They don't ever ask, what your schedule is when they're doing.
Yeah, they didn't come over and knock on my door.
Why.
They weren't like, "Hey, Braden, is this a good time for you?" Like, no, it's not actually.
Yeah.
But thanks for being on this, man. Thanks for doing this. I really just want to hear your journey. I mean, we met first time 2017. Is that 4 years ago? Somewhere around there. You were doing.
I believe it
was
a spring 4 years. No,
I think it was March.
Spring. Yeah.
I think it was March 2017, and you were doing front of house and tour managing for Colony House. And so I wanted to catch up 4 years later and just hear your journey. But before we get to where you are today, let's kind of go back a little bit. Did you grow up always wanting to run sound, manage bands, be on the road? Was that always a passion of yours?
I would say that I did not grow up wanting to do that. I was thrown into music from the day I was born because my parents, or actually my grandpa, started Bill Hardin Music in Macon, Georgia, and that is a music retail store. So it's the neighborhood music store where you go to buy your first guitar.
Okay. Are they still in business?
They're still in business, yes. In the 60s, there was no Amazon. There was no internet. So you go to the store, anytime you want something. And our store was known, it was a big part of the music culture of Macon, Georgia in the 60s and 70s. And then it still goes today. So they have students come in and do lessons, but they also sell, guitars, drums, pianos, they do lessons. And so I grew up as a big part of that. So I was kind of thrown into music from the beginning, and I knew that I wanted to play music, or be around music in some form, but I also had a knack for business. I enjoyed both. And so it's been a weird dynamic, learning both sides of music and business.
Yeah. What instrument did you pick up first?
So Well, first I was forced to play piano.
Okay, classic.
My mom signed me up for piano lessons at my school. And, while everybody else was going to have a recess, I was going to play piano. So that was not the most ideal thing for an 8-year-old, Also, I never would practice. And my teacher, she was the kind of teacher that would, she was very, this was like a Baptist private school. So
okay.
If you can think, it was a little more, buttoned up, no syncopated rhythm music, no drums, no guitars. It was very, 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 conservative. And,
Sure.
I would play these, I would want to play like these pop songs, and my teacher would just absolutely not let me play. So she would literally, if the piano book said like, rock rhythm, she would cross out the word rock. She would scratch out rock because rock is not, okay to say in that culture. So anyways, I quickly got tired of piano, but my parents were like, listen, we'll let you stop piano if you play, another instrument. So I started learning guitar, and then I went to bass, and bass kind of became my thing. It was a little easier for me.
Which is interesting. Not a lot of people go to bass guitar. It's not a very sexy instrument.
It's not sexy. I will say that. But, everybody, all my friends play guitar.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, instead of competing on guitar, maybe I can just play bass. And then I started really enjoy it because it's like the low end, you're really you feel it a lot more than a guitar. And it seemed like it was always the missing link in a group. So every band I played in high school or in college, it was always like they needed a bass player. And I just became the bass player. So it kind of just was, that was the instrument that I gravitated toward. And then the way I kind of got on the road and started doing sound, I went to Lee University for 2 years, which is a Christian liberal arts school in Cleveland, Tennessee, right above Chattanooga.
Okay.
And it was like my dream to go to this college. And they had a great music program, and I tried to get in the music program. I did not make it into the music program. And so they had some traveling choirs that did these like
did you have to like
gigs.
try out for it?
Yeah, I had to try out for the music program. So
and they just got back to you like, sorry, you suck, or what they
well,
tell
yeah,
you?
I didn't know how to read bass music for bass guitar. I didn't want to do the theory. I just wanted to play.
Yeah. What music were you playing when you started playing bass?
Oh, I mean,
was it like classic, or is it like AC/DC?
It wasn't AC/DC. It was more like Linkin Park. And I'm trying to think of
you went
who
the
I was
punk
really
route?
into at the time. Yeah, Blink 182.
Green Day.
A lot of those bands. Yes, Green Day. A lot of those bands from that time frame. Anybody who was on Warped Tour, I was probably playing their music. And so
Tour.
I'm going to Lee University to try to be in the music program, and they're like, "No, dude, you're not what we're looking for." So I joined a choir that was this traveling choir, and they had a band, and I got in to play bass. And then their old bass player came back right after I got in, and so I got stuck doing sound. They kicked me out. I became the understudy, and I got stuck doing sound, and that's where I really cut my teeth doing sound. Was in churches growing up, with my friends' bands, growing up, but also doing sound for this choir. And we'd travel on the weekends, and I can't tell you how bad the sound was for these choirs. I had no idea what I was doing. They just threw me back there and said, "Hey, you push buttons," and I kind of learned, by failure.
Yeah, was it fun for you at first? You were like, what the heck?
No, because I only wanted to be playing bass. I was actually, pretty angry that they gave me this like big high of, you're coming to college, you're getting in this band, you're going to be traveling playing bass, and then one weekend I'm stuck, pushing faders and plugging in cables. And I was pretty bad at it for a while, and then somehow started to get good at it. I think it's one of those things. It's like you keep doing bad until you figure out like one person who's good at something, and you kind of hang out around that person.
Yeah.
And there was like one person at the school who would always kind of teach me like little things here and there. And I was getting better. And then I was like, I actually like this. I actually like sound. So I started looking for colleges to transfer to that had an audio program. And I found a school in Florida called Full Sail University.
Okay.
And I went down, toured it. It was like the most amazing studios. So
Which is like their thing, right? They're all about music arts.
Yeah. They're all about like the tech in the audio world. And I think they have producing and film and all that stuff. But anyways, paid a down payment, got a roommate, went with my buddy to Nashville for just a weekend hang. And he was like, hey, let's go look at MTSU. I heard they got a new studio. And I was like, what's MTSU? And he was like, let's just go drive by it. So we drove by and they were doing a thing where it's like, stop by and see the studio. So we stopped in, asked, could we see the studio? And I went in these studios and I was like, oh my gosh, this place is really nice. And then while I was there, I applied. 24 hours later, I got accepted. And then I got a scholarship, and it was just like all these doors just kept flinging wide open. And I'm like, maybe I should go to this school instead of go to the one in Florida, because the one in Florida was going to be $45,000 a year. This one was going to cost me $3,000 a semester. So I just was like, and I could get a Spanish. I was really into Spanish. I wanted to learn it fluent. My family is Hispanic. So anyways, it was like I could do a 4-year degree. How
old were you at this time? Because you didn't go straight from high school right into college.
No, I took a gap year. And then that was probably 20 years old at this time. Okay. And at the time I still didn't know if running front of house was really a real, I didn't even know it was called front of house. I thought it was just sound guy, I thought maybe I could have like a sound company or something like that. But quickly I learned at MTSU as I started, this is a thing that people really go after for a career, and they go all over the world doing it. And
so you go to MTSU. Are you thinking studio or are you thinking live sound?
I'm thinking live sound. At the time, they had a couple classes. They didn't have a big program for live sound, but I was definitely thinking more live than studio. I did some studio stuff, and I thought for a minute maybe I'd be a songwriter or a producer or something like that, but it just didn't fit right. It just wasn't my thing.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're at MTSU, get accepted. What's the next step in that journey?
So the very first day I get there and into my class, and my very first class, it was this older guy, bearded, looked kind of like a washed up rocker, was basically like, everybody here, most of you are not going to be in this class by the end of the semester. This class is meant to weed you out.
Nice.
He's like, you are not going to be the next big producer. You're not going to be the next big musician. You are basically nothing.
Just
you
a
are
super
not important
encouraging
to
guy.
the industry. Oh, yeah. But you know what? Everything he said, I needed to hear. And everybody in that room needed to hear. And like he said, that class was extremely hard, and 75% of the class was out.
So why do you think you needed to hear that kind of tough love?
Because it kind of shows you from the beginning that, hey, this is going to be a rocky path. This is not just, you haven't made it just because you got into the school, and you have to actually work hard.
Yeah.
And MTSU is really great about instilling that work ethic inside every student that was there. They teach you that, like, not only are you going to have good talent to be able to get a job, but you also have to be a hard worker, and people have to enjoy working with you. And because talent, it can take you far, but it's all about who you know, and people actually have to like you. So anyways, that was one skill that I learned at MTSU that I'm thankful for.
Yeah. Okay, so you're there. You got the tough guy. Did you come around to him? Like, is he like the guy he's the really hard teacher up front, just to kind of establish a baseline, and then everybody liked him?
No, I saw him a couple years ago, and he was out at he has a huge record business that he sells records and old vintage records. And I saw him at a flea market, and I just looked at him and I was like, ugh, I don't like that guy. He was never nice. He wasn't the guy that you warm up to. He was the guy that just kind of sucked. But what he said was important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I'll keep the story of MTSU short because, I don't think all these people want to hear about all my college stories, but I will say that I learned it's all about who you know. I used to think it was about how hard you tried or how, talented you were. And those are important, but it's about who you know. And I learned that as I started MTSU. So I'd continue to always introduce myself to people. And I was a live sound guy.
Were they bringing in people to do like workshops and you'd say, hey, I'm Riley?
Yeah, but not even that. I was introducing myself just to musicians who were playing in like the quad or just like, hey, I do sound. If you ever need anybody, I can make it sound great. Or I can, I'll make sure there's vocal or feedback make sure there's no feedback on your vocal and make sure there's reverb so it sounds good.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many people get stoked about that conversation. They're playing a little show down the street. They want to sound great, Yeah. So I just go do little stuff like that. And that kind of started some relationships. I met one guy in the quad one day and I didn't like this guy at all. This guy was, he was pretty cocky actually at the beginning of our relationship. But I knew he played guitar. I knew we worked in some bands and stuff like that. He's a really good guitar player. He had ridiculous hair at the time. We had a conversation and kind of found out we knew some of the same people. And that one relationship turned into me getting my first gig on the road because that guy was Scott Mills, who's a guitar player for Colony House.
Yeah.
And who's also one of my best friends in the world. And so I hope he watches this. We've talked about me not liking him at the first.
He was just kind of stuck up rude or...
I think he was just quiet or spacey. I don't think he was actually rude. I think he just was kind of like spacey, honestly. Okay. And so that came off to me as rude.
Like, is he introverted, like artistic introvert?
No, not at all. But I think at the time he was just spacey and like, you're in a college like cafeteria, you've got like so many different types of people everywhere. So anytime I'd see him, he would never look you in the eye and talk to you. He'd always kind of be like looking around, and I thought that was rude at the time. But anyways, he is one of my closest friends in the world currently, but he called me to go out and work with his band, which was not called Colony House at the time. It was called Caleb. The singer of the band's called Caleb Chapman.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, we're going to Atlanta. I can pay you $50 to do this show. Well, at the time I had a job at Cracker Barrel. And I was pretty new at Cracker Barrel. Awesome. I was a rising star. I actually still have my apron.
How many stars did you have?
I never made it past a rising star because I called my manager and I was like, hey, I got this gig opportunity. It's something I want to do with my career. This is important to me. I want to take next Saturday off. And she goes, you're too new to take a weekend off.
How long have you been working there at this point?
40 days. 40 days exactly.
A little over a month.
A little over a month. And she's like, you're too new. And I was like, well, I'm following all the process, giving you 7 days. And she goes, well, you're too new to make that happen. And I'm like, well, I quit. So hang up the phone with this lady and realize, oh no, I just quit my job for $50. What am I thinking? But Braden, actually that moment right there helped set me on a path to like open up a whole new world. It opened up opportunity for me. It gave me a relationship with people that I'd never met before. I had not met the Chapman brothers, who are the brothers in Colony House.
Yeah.
I had not met them at this point. I only knew Scott, and this one risk that I took of quitting my Cracker Barrel job for $50 was a defining moment in my life.
So you quit Cracker Barrel. You're serving there. You quit, and just to do one show. Scott says, "Hey, we've got $50 with your name on it in one show in Atlanta."
Yeah, I knew that I could probably find something else in Murfreesboro. I wasn't. My expenses were really low at the time. So, I was paying like $250 a month for rent. It's very cheap. But I knew that like, I couldn't pass up opportunities like this. I was like, this is a moment. I just knew that like these opportunities don't come to everybody because you're in a group with all these classmates and they're all trying to figure out what to do. You get an opportunity, man, you take that opportunity. You can't look at it and say, oh, it doesn't really perfectly fit in the hole I needed to fit into. So I took that opportunity. We did the show, came back, and yeah, it felt like it was a rush. It made me super happy. I learned a ton on that first show, made some new friends. I came back from the show like, all right, well, what do I do next? And I did have to find some other opportunities. I did have to do a little extra odd jobs and stuff like that. But that relationship brought in another relationship a few months later in my last semester of college. I got hired to go out for a TM/FOH opportunity. And I got this email from a manager and I'm like, okay, FOH. I knew what FOH was. Because I was going to audio school. So I knew it meant front of house engineer. But I didn't know what TM meant. So I just typed in TM/FOH in Google and ended up on a tour manager Wikipedia page. And I'm like, tour manager, I can probably do that. Yeah, sure. So I said yes to the opportunity. Once again, just saying yes, didn't really know exactly what I was doing. And I met this band called Mike's Chair. They were a Christian artist at the time. They came down to Murfreesboro. They all went to Belmont. They were all Belmont grads, and they were like the cool Belmont band. And Belmont, if you don't know, is a college in Nashville. Yeah, pretty big music school. A lot of singer-songwriters come out of there. A lot of musicians come out of there. It's pretty big in the Nashville scene. MTSU is 30 minutes away from Nashville. Belmont is MTSU's biggest rival, and Belmont has no idea that MTSU exists.
That's so awesome.
So anyways, I met these guys and I just jump in the van with them. We drive all the way to Florida to do some shows, and I come back after doing the shows. They were very successful shows. I got along good with everyone, and I realized, wait, I can be a tour manager and a sound engineer. And so that was 10 years ago, almost to the day of this recording. And that is what I've been doing for the last 10 years. I've been a tour manager and I've been a front of house engineer. So tour manager, if you don't know what a tour manager does, it is the person who organizes all the logistics, handles all the money, the accounting. Sometimes you're the babysitter for the artist on the road. Basically, you are the liaison between the artist and the venue, or the venue manager or the promoter whenever you're on the road. So
are you calling up anybody tour managers of yours, or are you just trying to figure this out trial by fire?
I didn't have any tour manager friends.
Okay.
All I knew were people in college. My only connection to the music industry was Scott Mills and the Chapman brothers. And their dad is a massive artist. His name is Stephen Curtis Chapman. So he has a big community of people, but I didn't really know him at that time. I just knew them. So no, I literally Googled it. And that brought me, I'll fast forward one year to a moment that was even a bigger defining moment in my life. And this was a huge failure moment.
Oh no. Okay. Love it.
You mentioned a couple artists that I worked with. You mentioned a guy named Mat Kearney, and I'll just go ahead and say his name. I was a huge fan at the time. He had released this record called Young Love. Okay. And the record is fire. It is so good. It's the kind of record you at the time I was listening to with my friends. You'd have one ear pod in your ear, another ear pod in somebody else's. Yeah, strung across. If you're on a plane, you're like using a splitter. Yeah. It just was such a good record. And this was the summer of 2012. And I got an opportunity to go out and work for him as a tour manager and front of house engineer. I took the opportunity, and this was on a massive North America amphitheater tour supporting Train. And, Hey, Soul Sister, that song was like out at the time. It had just come out. So it's like a pretty big deal. Mat Kearney's direct support. Well, I got hired to go out, and I got asked, hey, can you go out just for a few shows, just as a trial run before the tour? We just want to make sure everything feels good. I was like, sure. So I'm like, I show up. It's my first day. We get to the show on time, and we're playing this festival, and this festival is massive. It's called Summerfest. It's in downtown Milwaukee, and it's such a big, important, very cred festival that they have built this entire like festival grounds right downtown Milwaukee. I mean, it is like you're right next to all the buildings and everything. And we show up, we're playing the second largest stage, which is over 10,000 people. We're headlining the stage that night. And we get there on time. I get everybody there. I'm getting along great with everyone. And there was a problem. The stage manager walks toward me and he's got a confused look on his face. And he's like, "Hey, Riley, there's no instruments on the stage. There's no instruments on a truck. There's no instruments backstage. What do we do?" And I'm like, confused as well. But see, we had flown to this show, and typically when you fly to a show, you have to rent instruments locally.
Yeah.
It's called renting backline. You're renting all the big stuff like drums, keyboards, stands. Some people rent guitars and amps and all that good stuff. So anyways, we show up to play this festival and there were no instruments because I forgot to order the instruments. And at this moment that the stage manager is talking to me, I just get this super sick feeling. Remember, this is my first show.
Yeah.
And I get this super sick feeling inside because I know that I screwed up, and I know down deep inside, I'm about to not get hired for this tour. I'm about to get fired. So anyways, Braden, like I solved the problem. We, our team came together. We made it all happen. But even the artist said it was one of the best shows he's ever been a part of, other than our hiccup. But I got home a couple of days later, 30 minutes after landing, I get a call from the manager and he says, "Hey, you're not really what we're looking for on the road. We got to have somebody with more experience. Maybe we'll get you another time." And that moment, was a very sad moment. I was super ashamed and super bummed. I lost like over $20,000 that summer, and hung my head pretty low because I had told all my friends, I'm going out on this big tour, and this is right after college. And so, I ruined a business relationship, never worked with these people again. And anyways, so I said this was a defining moment, and it made me realize like I never want to have this happen to me again. So I like started building processes and started like mentoring younger folks and really started trying to like dial in what I do on the road. And it took me a long time to kind of figure out all those things. But
okay, so they don't invite you back. Like how did that affect your mentality of like, were you totally discouraged? Did you want to give it up?
Oh yeah.
Like, where were you mentally when that happens?
Oh yeah. You wonder if you're not the right person for the job ever. You wonder if you've been doing the wrong thing. You went the wrong career. You think you're never going to be good enough. All those thoughts are going through your head. At that time I had spent years trying to get into this industry, and this was my big shot. This was my moment, and I blew it. And it was not because I had to learn that it wasn't not because I was a good person. It wasn't because I was not talented. It was not because I wasn't a hard worker. It was just that I hadn't dialed in like the right processes. Yeah. And like at the time, there's no training for that kind of stuff. And so it kind of set me on a path to be better about process. And I didn't really know anything about process. I'm not the most organized human. I don't love spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not at one on the Enneagram, if you will. But yeah, it was a time where I learned that, okay, I got to be better.
You know? So how do you recover from that?
Well, first of all, hopefully you have good people around you who tell you, the truth about yourself. Like, you're not a terrible human. You're good at what you do. You just made a mistake. And then you just vow to never do it again. Yeah. So I've never forgotten to order backline again. It's always like in the back of my mind, if we're flying to a show, have I ordered backline? But then also just like, teaching other people, to not let that kind of stuff happen to them has has been great. Developing processes for other parts of the job. Not just, a checklist for backline for ordering instruments, but yeah, I don't know how to tell you how to exactly recover because every situation is going to be different.
Sure.
They tell you just pick your head up and keep going, but it does not feel like you want to pick your head up and keep going.
Yeah.
Anytime you fail, it's going to suck, but you can't label yourself a failure.
Were you
that's
worried,
where the difference is.
Were you worried? Because Mat Kearney was a big name back then. Were you worried that was going to hurt your career?
Oh yeah, man.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, so many people I knew were connected to Matt. I found out, as I was working, so many people in the industry were connected to him. And also what sucked is I saw him all the time. As a matter of fact, he lives on the next street over from me right now. I see him all the time.
Did he ever talk to you about it, or just?
Oh yeah, we've had so many conversations since then.
Okay.
I ran into him at Dick's Sporting Goods in the fishing section, and we just had a long chat, about nothing. But I think I think other people don't necessarily care about your failures, and so if you can get past them yourself, other people are going to also be able to get past them. You can't, like I said a second ago, you can't label yourself a failure. If you label yourself a failure, you will never grow. You will never get over that moment. But if you just say, hey, I failed, what can I learn from this and how can I move forward? It's going to suck. It's going to be really hard to move forward. But if you can do that, then you're going to be able to take that, whatever happened, and use it to your benefit as a stepping stone to the next place you're going.
Yeah. So what did moving forward look like for you next?
Well, it looked like taking a job with an artist that I didn't want to necessarily take a job with. I had 2 offers on the table, and I had turned one down because of Mat Kearney, and so I went back to the other one.
You turned it down because you didn't think you could do it anymore?
I didn't want to do it in the first place. It was not cool.
Okay.
It was like it's not cool, and Mat Kearney thing was way cool.
Oh, this is before.
Yeah, so I went back to the other people, and they were like, well, "Why are you coming back to us? You said you had another opportunity. Did you get fired?" And I was like, "Well, I wasn't necessarily what they were looking for."
Yes,
but
very PC.
Yeah, so I jumped on their tour and started working with them, and really kind of trying to started like thinking about what I do more than just pushing faders. Like I started thinking with a bigger vision, that it's not necessarily just about like making something sound good. It's about creating a moment. It's about, it's about everyone in this venue. It's about you bringing, you creating a moment for those people to feel happiness, to feel joy, to have a place to escape from the stuff that's, ailing them. To whenever I see people in the crowd who are laughing and dancing and singing along, that's like the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Behind mixing front of house. It sounds so it's funny seeing a guy pushing faders, turning knobs, but that's the meaning. That's where I derive a lot of meaning from. And it shortly after that, like I met some guys in a band called Leagues, led by a singer-songwriter named Thad Cockrell, and they kind of helped me understand that vision behind what I was doing. It wasn't just, I didn't want to just plug in cables. Like it had to be more than that. And so they kind of helped me put like some form to that. And so when I started thinking about the meaning behind what I'm doing, that helped me move forward and helped me get over those issues.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned getting into education, getting into teaching people kind of how to learn from your failures so they don't have to do that. What did that process look like? Were you already thinking, let's go back to Mat Kearney, things explode? Were you thinking, man, I want to use this moment to help the incoming generation not have to do these moments? Or were you not there yet where you wanted to teach people?
No. I wasn't there for a while.
Okay.
I wasn't there for a while until I started seeing like other people fail on the road or other things happen on the road that people just weren't prepared for. And Braden, actually, I was, working with a couple other bands on and off, but I've never typically had a problem finding work on the road, but I knew a lot of people who did have trouble finding work. And so I kind of started like connecting people to jobs, just as a starter thing. Like I just would hear someone who needed a tour manager, front of house engineer, a guitar tech or something, lighting director. And I would just, say, hey, I can't do it, but I got a buddy who can. Yeah. So I'd text a couple friends and I'd say, hey, would you be willing to take this opportunity? It pays, X amount a week. They're looking for these dates. Can you feel it? And then I go back to the hiring party and say, hey, I got this friend. I trust this person. I'm actually going to show them how to work on this console, or I'm going to show them how to use this process to settle your shows so that, all the accounting is done right. I think you should hire him. And so like, I started doing that with a lot of friends, and, it became 10, 20, 30 people that I started doing that with. And it kind of made me realize like, there's no one really representing crew people in the industry. So especially on the job front. So I started this company helping touring crew find jobs. And when I started that, I realized even more that like people need training really, really badly.
Okay.
Cause a lot of people just start doing these jobs because they're a buddy of the band. They don't actually have any real training.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody out on the road who's expected to do a job, when you have somebody anywhere who's expected to do a job, whether it's in sales, whether it's in, in some type of, mechanical work, or, imagine if you got an electrician in your house who hasn't had any electrical training, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it wouldn't go well.
Yeah. So it's the same on the road. You've got the job they're trying to do, amplified by they haven't been home for a while, amplified by they probably haven't slept a lot, amplified by substance on the road. A lot of these are recipes for tough times and hard times and failure on the road, disaster, if you will. And, I think this is a long answer to your question, but, I just realized that these people needed a little more, of a path to walk down sometimes, so that's kind of why I started teaching, folks,
Gotcha.
How to avoid these problems in their lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to go back a little bit because you mentioned it, kind of that living on the road lifestyle. How was that for you? You've got to travel all around the world, and the stories or that tour life on the road is just wild and crazy. How was living life on the road for you? Was it exciting, unbelievable? Were you like, this is draining, I need to get home? Where were you kind of in that spectrum?
I think I've been all over the spectrum, Braden. I've been to about 30 something different countries, touring. So whether that's tour managing, running sound, front of house, I've worked in about 30 something different countries. And you got to think, to get to those 30 something different countries, there's a lot of travel involved. There's a lot of logistics involved in getting, 9 to 14 people, overseas. And the job can become very tough. It can really drain you.
Yeah.
And that's why I was talking about the meaning of the job earlier. Realizing why you do something is really important. When I went on the road, it was just like, hey, this is cool, but then it started like to become a thing where it's like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And that helped bring a little more clarity to the job. But, going on the road, it's pretty fun. When you're in a van, you can, a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to if you're in a van, all you want to do is get to a bus. If you've been in a bus your whole career, yeah, it's nice, but you sure would like to fly in a private jet sometime.
Sure. Yeah.
And so there's always that level of like wanting to get higher. But, when you're in a van or in a car, you have opportunities to build relationships with the people in that vehicle better than any other type of touring, because you are in it together. There's no hierarchy really. Everybody's sleeping on van benches, Also, when you see something cool, you can just pull over and stop. Like, I'll never forget this one memory. We were driving from Seattle. We're in Tennessee right now, and we started the tour in Tennessee and we ended the tour in Seattle. So Tennessee is here and Seattle is here. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's a long way away from each other, right? So we had a long way to drive home, and a couple of the guys decided to fly home, and we were driving out west, and we were just kind of taking our time. You know, it's a long drive, but we came to a fork in the road somewhere around, you know, Wyoming, and to the right we go home, to the left we go to Yellowstone. And I'm driving.
Who are you traveling with?
So I'm with Colony House at this point. And there's a couple guys in the back. You know, we're pretty exhausted. We've been out for 2.5 months at this point, and we're coming to this fork in the road. You know, the interstate splits. It's like literally a sign: Yellowstone that way, or home, you know, this way. And I'm like, guys, what do we do? Do we go to Yellowstone? I'm not sure what to do here. I want to go to Yellowstone. And everybody's like, I don't know. Should we do it? Should we do it? And
Let's do it.
we're to the point where we got to make the choice. And I just like, let's go to Yellowstone.
Van erupts, everyone's.
Yeah. And I, you know, we couldn't have done that had we been in a bus, or if we were in a private jet, we would already have been home.
Yeah.
But those moments are what make touring to be what it is. It's those moments where you are doing the same kind of situation where you're driving through you know, somewhere, and you decide to get up early and go on a quick hike through Yosemite before you go to your show, or you you have flat tires in the middle of the night, or you have to, you know, you have an engine problem in the middle of the night, and you pull over and you see the Aurora Borealis or something, you know, crazy like that. That's the kind of stuff. That's the moments that really make it worth it. But also there's the moments where you're sleeping on the floor. There's the moments
you're
where
changing the flat tire.
You are changing the flat tire. And I've had a lot of those. There's the moments where you are so tired that you are seeing hallucinations, you know, no drugs involved. You're just sleepy.
Sure.
You're sleep deprived. You're seeing hallucinations and you're like, oh my gosh, is this real? I'm not sure.
Sounds real safe to be driving and hallucinating because of sleep deprivation.
You know, every band that I've had a chance to work with, and we've been on the road together in a van, there's always the pilot and there's always got to be the co-pilot. The co-pilot is not allowed to go to sleep. And if the co-pilot does go to sleep, the driver has the authority to reach over and punch that person
in his face.
Yeah.
Wake him up.
And that's the way you stay alive on the road.
That's so awesome. What are some of is there like a singular moment that you look back and you're like, man, that was a really cool career moment up to this point?
Yeah, I would say there's a few great moments. One was probably my first big one was working with the band Leagues. They're no longer a band, but they put out some of my favorite music. And like I said, the singer, his name is Thad Cockrell, and we just got to do the Tonight Show a couple weeks ago together.
That's right. I saw that. Yeah.
Did you go to that? We went to it, and there was a COVID scare as we were walking into the studio. And so we had to end up leaving the studio, and we had to do it virtual, which we were in New York, and we ended up still having to shoot it virtual.
COVID scare with the studio or with you guys?
Yeah, with the studio. And so we had to abandon ship, unfortunately. We are on the other side of the door of the studio, and they were like, hey, wait, hang on. We actually don't know if we can do this. So that's a long story in itself. But this guy named Thad Cockrell had a band called Leagues, and we had toured for a while across the U.S. We were doing headline shows, and this was a band that I had loved their music, like had been a huge fan, and then got the opportunity to work with. But we had never had a Nashville show, and we got to play this big festival called Live on the Green here in Nashville. It's a big free music festival. It's known for having fantastic music every year. It's put on by Lightning 100, the radio station here. And we came back and were support for local natives. And at the time, Local Natives was massive, as well as Leagues was getting a lot of attention. They were the cool band coming out of Nashville.
Yeah.
And so being able to mix a show in my hometown, seeing people dance, and it's sounding great. I mean, it's one of the best sounding shows I've ever had. And that was a phenomenal moment. Then, going to a moment with Colony House because they were friends, because they had hired me and I quit my job for $50
at Cracker Barrel.
They seeing their success always makes me super happy.
Yeah.
And this past October, they had a third record come out. Their third record was called Leave What's Lost Behind. And they Leave Us Lost Behind? I think that's right.
That's right.
It's Everybody's Look.
Leave Us Lost Behind.
It's Leave Us Lost Behind.
Yeah,
sorry.
right.
Yes,
we'll edit that part. You knew the whole time what the album was called.
Their album's called Leave What's Lost Behind, and they had the biggest tour they'd ever done. They were selling out every show. It was a phenomenal response from fans, and even themselves. They were playing better than they ever played, and they got cut short by COVID.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't know what to do in that moment, but Caleb, who's a singer, he edited a movie. He made a movie of their of a lot of the show, a lot of the footage from the first 10 shows of the tour, as well as footage from making the record and footage from a trip they did out west. Anyways, put all this thing together, and he calls me up. He goes, "Hey man, I've been editing this movie. Do you think we could pull off a drive-in show, like a drive-in movie?" And I'm like, yeah, why not? Typically Caleb has these ideas. He calls me up and we chat about the ideas. So I didn't hear about it again until I saw the tickets go on sale. And the first show sold out in, less than an hour.
Crazy.
We sold 400 something cars in less than an hour. And so that moment, he calls me up. He goes, "Hey, we sold the first day. We're actually going to put another one on sale." And so we ended up selling, a bunch more the second day. And going from, just mixing sound with them to running front of house and tour managing. And then I was actually on their management team for a while. Going from those roles and stepping up with them into building out this drive-in show that was massively successful in the middle of COVID. That was a pretty great moment.
Yeah.
You're not only seeing their success, but you're also seeing you're seeing the story continue. It's just a new chapter, and the chapters keep getting better.
Yeah. I love it.
So that was a cool moment.
It's also one of those things where COVID has kind of forced the music industry to rethink the way it's producing content and reaching out and connecting with its audience, which is crazy. And do you think it's been a good thing? Do you think that that's been a good silver lining for the music industry?
Yeah, because it's exposing a lot of things that have happened in the past that we haven't fixed. So it's exposing, in the live music industry, so many problems, from the way people are treated on the road to a lot of racial not integrated tours. There's not been a lot of diversity on the road or a lot of equality in the past, and no one was aware of it until, now.
Yeah.
And the movement in the world, for diversity and equality is finally making its way to the music community and the touring community. And that's the part I'm most involved in. I'm not a songwriter, so I don't know how it's changed songwriters, but I think also artists are realizing that they need more control over their product. So for instance, I've seen people I helped an artist in the fall do a backyard tour. And all he did he did not hire a promoter. All he did was email all of his fans. He had been building an email list for years, used that email list to email his fans, found the top 10, wanted to find the top 10 fans to come play a show in their backyard, ended up booking 25 shows. And I went out with him, helped him make it happen. And that just shows that when artists are able to grab more control, that they're going to be more successful, in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you think is keeping artists from that control? Has it been just the system of labels? Is it just a routine that's kind of kept everyone in this same mentality, or something else?
I think there has been a lot of, for years, and this is not wrong. This is not a bad frame of mind. It just sometimes doesn't work. But artists will get a record deal. They want the record deal because the record deal provides a team and provides money typically. But then the record team, the label doesn't do anything. And that's a huge frustration. Or you expect a manager to go out and do XYZ. And sometimes that happens, but for the most of the time, the artists have to grind it out. And so whenever you give an artist more control, whether that's in their marketing, with Facebook ads, or in their development, putting together music and stuff, when you give them more control, I think they see a bigger benefit.
Yeah.
And I keep talking about Colony House, but Colony House has really started to get into this. And the singer-songwriter I went out with and did this COVID backyard tour, Matt Wirtz, he's really done the same thing too, where he's really started to kind of learn the marketing side of the business, and take up that side himself, and start to really like build fans outside of what a label would typically do.
Yeah.
And that gives him and it gives Colony House more control.
Yeah, and better connection with their audience, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Better connection. They're more active on socials. They're listening to what people have to say, but they're also like, there's not as many hands in the pot, if you will. So they're actually able to build a better career and create better because there aren't as many hands in the pot.
Yeah, they don't have to go through so many channels to produce some, like Caleb, if he wants to make a movie, can make a movie.
Yeah. Totally.
That's so awesome. So let's go back a little bit and talk COVID. Was that an influential factor for you in launching? Because you had Tour Collective before COVID, kind of connecting people. Was COVID kind of like a moment where you had to rethink what that looked like?
Well, yeah, we had people on tours and all those tours got canceled.
Yeah, everything shut down.
We had people planning to go on tours and those tours got canceled. Then what do you do when there's no jobs? You can't provide jobs. You can't connect people to jobs if there are no jobs. So we talked to a lot of the people in our community and they wanted some training. People were doing training in, everything else. There's every other kind of industry had training, but the touring community had no training.
Yeah.
And I just saw a need there and did a webinar of some teaching some things I had learned, and had like 25 people schedule a call with me after I said we wanted to create a tour manager curriculum. So we had all those people reach out and I was like, man, this is like, these people want it.
Yeah.
So we created this curriculum and they all went through the course. And it was really, really, really cool to see that. And some of those people have actually already found new jobs.
That's so awesome.
Which is phenomenal.
So they log on, they sign up for the course, they log on, there's video curriculum.
Yeah. So it's all, we did 5-week courses at the beginning where you come and sit in a class virtually for 5 weeks long. And it's a lot of time commitment for the student. So we did that twice, and we worked through the whole curriculum again, made it a little bit shorter, but more like to the point, so that you can quickly learn. And then we put it all online. So it's all on demand now. So it's kind of like the Netflix model. You can just log in and watch it when you want. But but it's really helping people. And that is like, I see maybe even doing more than just tour management curriculum. I see maybe doing a front of house curriculum, maybe an Ableton curriculum at some point for live application. I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It sounds like the dreams are cooking though. You've got some ideas.
Yeah, totally. I think there just is a lack of education on the road, and you'll start to see more of this popping up. I'm not the only one. I know 2 other people right now creating a curriculum, but I think people want to have better training. So when they go on the road, they can, for so long, they've had a glass ceiling. Touring crew have had like the ceiling of like, can't get any better because nobody's teaching you how to get better. You just got to learn from doing on the road.
Yeah.
I think that's just such a bad way to learn, learn by doing. Yeah. That's important to be around people who are doing it that are better than you and to see it a lot more as caught than taught. But if I had just known a process for doing some shows, I wouldn't have lost that job with Mat Kearney. I wouldn't have lost $20-something thousand that summer.
Yeah.
I would have had a process to follow, and I would have known that I didn't order instruments for a show.
Yeah, but here's the thing, silver lining about that though. If that didn't happen, it wouldn't have given you the ammo to be able to equip people to not have their own failures. And who knows totally where you would be if that was a smash success. Yeah,
I mean, I think I'm always kind of looking at the bigger picture, and I'm thankful that those things did happen, and I didn't just hang my head, forever.
Yeah.
But I actually, came out stronger, and I would say 9 years later from that time, I am stronger.
Yeah.
Which is awesome to see. Sometimes you can't see it, when it's right in front of you, you can't see how you're going to be better. But once again, it goes back to not labeling yourself as a failure, but, overcoming that failure.
Yeah, learning from it, pressing forward. Mm-hmm. For you, since you're kind of diving into this education field now, for students who are kind of coming up, the people who are wanting to become a crew member, start touring, what advice would you give them? Would you say that school, going to a place like Full Sail or where you went, do you think that's still really vital, or has the culture really changed and it's all about experience and who you know? So invest your time and resources into that. Hybrid, like what would you tell?
You know who some of the best crew people on the road are? They are people that work in big churches and have decided to go on the road. And that kind of sounds crazy.
Interesting.
But a lot of churches these days have way better technology, way better teams than what is on the road. And so anytime, if you're an audio engineer, go find a church, go find a venue, go find a local theater to help out with, and just start rolling cables. Everybody wants somebody to roll their cables. And so if you can just get your foot in the door that way, it's going to help you out a ton. If you're trying to go the more logistics route, the tour manager route, you can also go volunteer at your local venue, selling merchandise, selling tickets. You could help out in hospitality, setting up a green room and all that stuff. Being around it, proximity is key. You want to be around it as much as you possibly can. But honestly, man, I'm telling you, if you're an audio engineer, go help out at a church, a big church somewhere, because you're going to learn so much, and you're going to get your hands on some great equipment probably.
That's awesome. So would you say that there still is a lot of value in formal education, or would you say really for the people who are wanting to do what you do, would you say maybe it's more important to get hands-on volunteer training at a church, or find someone who's doing what you want to do and tag along?
Yeah, I think there's always value in education, whether it's formal education or whether it's, courses you're doing. A lot of people talk about YouTube University these days. You can find so much information out there. But though they are valuable, I think all education is valuable. However, just because you don't have formal education doesn't mean you're not valuable.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean you can't learn something. One of my mentors, or friends, I should say, is a guy named Donald Miller. Donald Miller is a author and a business leader.
Just a small time author there. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people probably don't know who he is, but anyways, he's become a good friend. And he just wrote a business book, or he was an author, like writing memoirs, right? And then he started a business called Story Brand, where they help with marketing, help you get your message clear. And then he wrote a business book that just debuted on number 2 on the Wall Street Journal this week. Like 2 days ago, it hit number 5 on Amazon of all books, number 5. Don wrote a business book, didn't go to business school. So it's like, he learned from mentors, he learned from people, he learned by doing. And you don't have to go to college to be able to do something like this. But you do need to be around it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool. So what's next? We're almost out of time, but I want to talk about what's next for you. Like, you've recently launched this curriculum. Are you like, that's my future, I want to do curriculum, I want to teach and equip? Or are you still, hey, when things open up and things are opening up, I want to get back on the road? And like, what's next for you?
Not sure yet, Braden. Okay. I've had some opportunities present themselves for the fall, tours that are open and are happening. I haven't said yes to any of those yet. I would like for, I see Tour Collective being able to become, in the next 5 years, as long as the market adapts it, finding product market fit for anything is hard.
Yeah.
Whether it's a service, whether it's product, but I would like to see Tour Collective become the industry standard for the place you go to find your crew. And also like to be able to help provide benefits to crew members who typically don't have those things offered with their roles. So, whether that's artists depositing to their health savings account, or helping them to get healthcare in some form or fashion, or maybe helping, with every job, with every show, something goes into a retirement account for crew. I'd love to see something like that where, you're getting more than just doing the show and a paycheck. With every job, most people, they get some kind of benefit,
Yeah.
Most people out there watching probably have a job with some kind of benefits, but as a touring crew person, you just do not. So that's one problem I'd like to be solving in the industry. And I think it can be solved, and I think it can be solved in the next 1 to 5 years. So that's one thing I see. Also, maybe it's creating a whole, like I said, a whole education, touring education, if you will, for a lot of the jobs out there. I don't know, man. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, but I also love music. And so merging the two is always really fun.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure what the next 5 years looks like, but
you got time.
Plenty of time. I'll probably go on another tour sometime really soon. I'm doing a couple dates in the spring, doing some consulting for some larger churches. You'll probably see me on the road at some point.
That's awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you sitting down, taking time to tell your story and kind of where you're at, how you got to where you are, and also where you're going. One of the things that I recall when we met is I've been around live music a lot throughout the years, and I've always felt like people are super, like crew members, musicians, they're kind of just almost jerks, super jaded maybe to outsiders. And I think one of the biggest things that I really respect and love about what you're doing is, man, the first time we met, it was like there was no pretense, there was no wall, man. And I really appreciate the way how relational you are in an industry that really, it's pretty closed off. You've got to be in the inner circle to be relatable. And I really appreciate it. I think what you're doing is incredible. I think also in the creative industry, it's so secretive. The music industry, I mean the design, photography, video industry, everything is so secretive. We view people coming in as a threat and competition. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so awesome to see you counterculture that a little bit in creating actual curriculum to train up these people. And so,
yeah, someone recently said, okay, so if these people go through this curriculum, don't you think they can take your job? And I was like, if I'm doing this right, then yes, they will totally take my job, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah. That's so awesome. It's so counterintuitive to real society right now. And so I really respect that, man. I love what you're doing. And I'm excited to see what's next for Tour Collective and just you in general, what's next for you. So how can the people out there get in touch with you? How can they get connected with you? Are you on social media? What websites you got? What's the deal?
Yeah, totally. So Instagram, you can DM me all day at Riley Vasquez, RILEY VASQUEZ. Actually, Twitter and Instagram. But also go, if you're interested in tour management, if you're interested in learning how to, how to go on the road and what it takes to crush a tour, you can find that course at tourcollective.co/course. And if, there's a button down there that says contact. If you want to write us an email or something like that, I'll either me or my partner will get that email, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
But yeah, always DMs are open on Instagram and Twitter.
Let's go. That's so awesome. So yeah, if you want to do this, if you want to follow in his footsteps, maybe take his job one day, then man, go visit and shoot him a message. Riley, I really appreciate you taking the time. This was a lot of fun for me, really good for me, and I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, Braden, thanks so much for having me, man. Thank you. It was cool to meet you a couple years ago. You're a great photographer, and I hope you get some way more interesting people than me.
This is awesome. This is top tier for me. So I appreciate it, man. And we'll see you guys next time.